So we're gonna start with a quick presentation, kind of get an overview of the medical school process, like what classes you're supposed to take, what kind of general requirements of medical school, of how to get to medical school. But we're trying to make that presentation very quick so that it'll be more interactive. So let's get to it right away. So first we'll start with medical school. So we'll start with medical school first, the process for medical school, and then I'll have Dr. Hassan talk about dental school. So generally, for medical school, first thing you want to find out is, you want to know if you really want to go to medical school. That's your step one, which is, some people find out during high school, some people find it later. That's why you can see some of the percentages. When people find out when they really like to get to med school. And it's never late. I mean, if you're thinking about medical school, it doesn't have to be, there's not a specific time where you can think about medical school. You can start as early as high school, you can start as late as because I know some people who have done their PhDs and started about, and then thought about doing medical school. So it's never late. It's just got to think about what's perfect for you. So these are just general objectives for today's webinar. So we'll talk about the general requirements, what's needed, and so forth. And then we'll talk about SAMA's mentorship program, which is a good thing that SAMA is starting. So mainly you want to pick a major, and then pick a major that's really important to you. It doesn't matter what major. So that's the caveat. Some people think about, it doesn't have to be a science major, but it doesn't really have to be. It can be anything. It can be, it can be an art major, it can be a music major, dance major, whatever. But as long as you fulfill those requirements, as long as you fulfill the requirement, that's all you need. So just pick a major that you really enjoy and that that really like. The only thing I would want to say, that's why is that a lot of these requirements, as you can see, are science. So you would need 2 classes of biology, basically 2 semesters of biology, general biology with lab, 2 semesters of general chemistry with labs, 2 of organic chemistry with labs, 2 of physics of lab, and then you have to take 2 English semesters, and then 1 math. It doesn't have to be even calculus. It depends depending on the college that you want to go, depending on the medical school you want to apply to. Some require, some don't. But for the most part, as long as you just take some sort of a math class, it could be algebra. And I'm pretty sure similar to dental school. I can let Hassan talk about that.
Yeah,
too.
so for us, for dental school, it's pretty much the same requirements. I think if you go on the American Dental Association website, it will show you that most of these are the same. So you have the same biology requirements, the general chemistry, organic chemistry, and physics, and English. But math is dependent on the school. So some schools will actually require you to have some sort of cognitive science. So whether it's, some neuroscience or sometimes it's even psychology. And some will also require biochemistry. So when you decide that you want to go through this track, once you do the basic ones and you know what school you want to apply to, you want to go and review their website and see what additional requirements they want.
Exactly. That's why we have those 2 classes under recommended. Like, for example, biochemistry and anatomy and physiology, they're not necessarily required, but depending on the school you're applying to, you might need to take those 2 extra classes in addition to the required classes that I just talked about. So it kind of depends on where you want to apply. But if you want to keep it general, I would advise just taking all of them, just kind of broaden your base and cover your bases. But it's not necessarily you have to take biochem or anatomy and physiology. It's just, it's college dependent. And here you kind of like a general timeline of where of when you want to take these classes. I hope you guys can see my slide as I'm talking. So, and in the audience, if you guys have any questions, just pop in at any moment. So we're not ignoring you. All right. So we have audience here, live audience, and then of course you have you guys. So you can always pop in with any question. Feel free to interrupt at any point. Just ask questions. We'll go through our chat through Facebook or YouTube. So bring those questions. All right. So this is just a general view. It doesn't have to be in that order, obviously. You can take these classes at any point during your career. So you don't have to take it at that specific order. For example, first year, I mean, this is just a general order. So your first year, you can take your start with Gen Chem, the first Gen Chem 1, and you can maybe example take calculus with that, and then take Gen 2 general chemistry in the spring with some biology in the spring. But I mean, that's kind of like, it's up to you. I don't know if you want to add any.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, when I was applying to dental school, I kind of followed the same track, and anyone who's applying to health professional schools, usually it's pretty much that same pattern. So any pre-medical program, whatever university you're attending, if you ask them what the track is, usually it's the same. Whether you want to go to med school, dental school, pharmacy school, usually it's that same track. So.
All right. And the other thing I want to add too, because how I mentioned earlier that you can do whatever major. So just make sure, when you do, let's say you do a non-science major, just make sure you take these classes in addition to your requirements. So let's say you're a psychology major. You have a set of requirements that you have to fulfill per your major, but then you also have to take this class in addition to get to medical school, dental school, or pharmacy school. So that's why a lot of people kind of go toward science majors, because a lot of these classes overlap with the requirements. So you don't have to, basically take additional classes. But again, it's not, I'll say this again, it's not important to do a science major. You can do whatever major that you like, as long as you fulfill these requirements. All right. And the MCAT.
Do you have a question? Okay.
Question?
Right.
Question, the audience? Okay, let's see if there's any question before we move on. Any questions from the Facebook? Hold on, I'm gonna check real quick, see if I have any questions from the. Oh yeah, Yasser would like to. Can you unmute Yasser? Yeah, Yasser, go ahead, and if you want to make any addition.
There's a big delay.
Okay. So again, we apologize. We have some, we're having some difficulties, technical difficulties. So you gotta bear with us a little bit. So you have to go ahead. I'm muted now.
Can you guys hear me?
Go ahead and comment if you have anything to add to what we said, kind of from your own experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I think the biggest thing about taking classes is just to do well in the classes is definitely the thing I would emphasize the most. Like medical school is definitely a competitive process. Dental school is also a competitive.
Hold on 1 second. Just 1 second. You guys hear? We're good? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, dental school, medical school are both competitive processes. So I think the best thing, or the thing that's the most important, is definitely to score well in those classes to help you within the application process. Every year it just gets harder and harder to get into school. So it's crucial to absolutely score well in those courses to get to where you want to be within dental or medical field for sure.
Yeah. Can I talk now? Yeah. So just wanted to say too, that's right. I mean, let's say, your first year, second did not go as well as you would like. That's not going to mean it's game over for you.
That's absolutely
medical school, they actually look at the trend. As long as you're making an upward trend toward the end, that's what they look for. As long as you're making the effort, kind of improve your grade, your GPA, stuff like that. That's what they kind of look for, because they know people, coming from high school, they have a lot of struggles, have difficulty with adjusting to college and the space in college. So they might mess up in the beginning, but that's fine too. You don't have to be perfect in the beginning. You can always make up for it.
Additionally, yeah, and one thing I can add too is that if some of those courses don't go well for you and you still want to pursue a career in healthcare, you can also, there are options like post-baccalaureate programs that you can do after you graduate from college. And for those who decide they want to go into those fields later, also that's also an option. And usually those programs last about a year, sometimes two, depending on what science courses you took. But that's also an additional option to kind of help boost your GPA if you need it. But it's very, very important that you do as well as you can the first time around so that you don't have to do any of those courses.
Exactly. Let's see, just to see if there's any more comments or questions before we move on to the next slide. Any questions, audience? Question? Okay. I'm just checking to see if there's any more questions on the YouTube page.
It might be easier to just assign somebody to kind of
Go through the
track of
questions.
the questions, and then just as they come
Right.
up, they can just point them out to us.
So someone asked, is it necessary to take an English writing class? It's not necessary that you take an English class as long as you fulfill the two requirements. So basically your English 101 and English 102. But if you feel that, feel that's necessary for you, or it helps you to develop your writing skills, I would definitely recommend it for you, but you don't have to take it necessarily for medical school. I did take an English class. I did take an English class myself, writing class, when I was in college. I thought it was very helpful for me, but you don't have to. It's not a requirement for medical school. As long as you English 101, English 102, that would be sufficient.
They require you to do 8 credit hours of English. So usually if you do the 101, 102 your first year, that pretty much covers it.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to the next slide, see what you got. The MCAT. So the MCAT, don't ask me what it stands for. I have no idea what it stands for. I know it's the medical test that you take in between so at some point in college to get to medical school. I don't know what it stands for. So it's just that basically tests all your knowledge in the sciences. They recently updated it, said they changed the formatting a little bit, but it still tests the same concepts, which are general chemistry, biology, physics, and now they added psychology, physiosocial sciences in there, and some critical analysis. So basically, all the classes you've taken through college, you have to study again and then take them. And then we can do another webinar just to talk about the MCAT, because that's another topic, and how to prep and how to study for the MCAT. So we can discuss that later. And the scores kind of vary. Honestly, I'm not really familiar with the new scoring system. So maybe Yasser, you can maybe chime in and talk about that. You're more familiar with that than I am.
I actually also took the older version of the MCAT. So unfortunately, the new scoring of the newer MCAT scores, I'm not too familiar with myself. However, the only thing that's major different within the new MCAT is the addition of the psychological, social, biological foundations of behavior. That was like a new section that was added within this updated MCAT in 2015. Unfortunately, without the scores, I'm not really sure what is deemed. I'm not really even sure how it's even scored, because back when we took it, it was out of the 45 older scale. So unfortunately, I don't really know too much about this new one.
That's right. So in addition to the classes that we kind of talked about earlier, the major classes are the biologies and the other sciences, the chemistries. I would also recommend taking a psychology course, because a lot of those topics come again on the MCAT. It's not that you have to take it to do well on the MCAT, but I feel it'll help you if you take a class during college to prep you for the MCAT. I don't know talk about the
so to talk a little bit about the DAT. So for us in the DAT, it doesn't actually have a physics portion of the exam, which is good news, I'm sure, for a lot of people. But what it does have is biological sciences, and it does have a writing portion of it, and it has a chemistry portion, and there's also a perceptual ability portion, which is it's a little bit different. Essentially, with the perceptual ability, what they're testing is they'll give you different shapes and things like that you have to manipulate in your head to come up with a final product. So they're trying to see if you can see things in 3 dimension, which is kind of an interesting part of the test. But overall, I would say that if you do plan on taking the DAT, one of the aids that helped me, at least when I took it years ago, was the DAT Destroyer, and I think that still stands true for today. It's a great resource. The first time you go through it, most people will get like maybe 10% of the questions correct, because it's ridiculously hard. But don't get discouraged, just keep going. Do it like 3 or 4 times, and you'll see your scores start to improve. And then the actual exam is a lot easier than the DAT Destroyer, so it helps you to do a little bit better on that exam.
Yeah, MCAT is very similar too. So there's a lot of books or resources that you can use to prep for the MCAT. One of the ones that I like personally is Exam Crackers, and I think you can attest to what you use to for your MCAT. The one I like is Exam Crackers, short and to the point. So you can use that, but you can use whatever sources that you like. There's a lot of companies that produce a lot of resources. And we can dedicate another webinar to talk about MCAT specifically on DAT.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to.
So the resources I used Kaplan predominantly. However, Exam Crackers was great too because it was more of like an outline. It basically told you what you needed to know for the exam, while Kaplan kind of gave you more of the background information on how to answer the questions, and it gave you more of a detailed explanation on the topics that were covered within. So I used both of those when I took my MCAT. I would kind of focus on what Exam Crackers covered while using Kaplan to actually learn or relearn what I actually needed to take the exam.
Right. Okay. So for the MCAT, if you ask when should I take the MCAT, there's not a specific timeline as to when you can take it. You can take it after you finish your first and second year, after you finish all those required courses. That's when I actually recommend taking it, because you will finish all the courses that are required for med school, and that way you cover all your bases, all the topics that are going to be covered on the MCAT. So a lot of people take it after they finish their junior year. So between the junior and senior, take it during the summertime. So they basically take that summer to study for the MCAT, and then take it toward the end of that summer. So that way their application is ready when they're finished with their senior year of college. But it doesn't have to be that way. I didn't do that because I didn't know. But you can take it basically at any point. At any point, just set a good time to study for it. Make sure you prepped enough, and then take it at any point. Anyone has questions as far as MCAT and when are you supposed to take it?
So how long does it take?
So question, how long does it take to prepare for the MCAT? So it really depends on you. Everybody prepares differently, and it takes a different amount of time to prepare. So take it as much time as you would like, basically. On average, I would say 3 months. That's how long it'll take to prep for the MCAT, but it doesn't have to be that long or that short.
Yeah. For the DAT, it's about the same. And I'm actually fortunate. I've actually taken both exams, so I know exactly what they're both like. The difference between the MCAT and the DAT is that with the MCAT, it's more of reasoning. So you'll have a passage, and you'll have like for the physical sciences, you'll have like a physics portion and a chemistry portion in that passage, and you kind of reason through it to answer. Whereas with the DAT, they are like the questions are discrete, so it'll be just one question. There's no passage associated with it, and you just kind of apply the principles of if it's chemistry or biology or whatever, and answer the question. So it's a little bit, I guess it's different in that way. So the DAT Destroyer again helps you with that.
Yeah. So if you have any input as far as when and how long did it take you to study, and Yasser? Did we lose Yasser?
Sorry, no. I actually had my microphone muted. Sorry about that. It took me about 4.5 months to prepare for the MCAT. Yeah, it was a solid 4 to 5 months, basically like studying like 5 days out the week, probably about 4 to 5 hours per day. But again, like everyone has their own timetable, like you guys both said. There's people who spent 2 months on it. There's people who spent 7 months on it. I feel like it all depends on what your schedule is, how many hours you're able to dedicate to studying. And while you are studying, is just try to make it as active and productive as possible. I think that's kind of like my main takeaways from it. A recent question I actually got from someone who's applying to medical school this cycle was if I were to do it all over again, what are the things I would possibly change about, let's say, the way I studied for the exam? I think the biggest thing I probably would have changed was to spend more time taking questions and answering questions. I spent a lot of time trying to learn the content that was covered within the exam instead of going into questions right away. So the thing that I've learned is to use the questions or use the question stems that you have to study for the exam and learn off of those, because not only are you learning the content that's covered within the exam, but you're also learning the the way to answer the question, and you're also getting as many reps and repetitions of how they're asking you questions. So it's not only you're learning the material, but you're also learning test taking strategies as well throughout that whole process. Yeah, sorry about that. I was just moving. The library got kind of loud. I just moved to a different area. So you guys were talking about the experiences you guys have in med school, yeah? So basically, if I were to summarize basically my first 2 years of school so far, it's probably been the funnest two years of my life, while also being the most challenging. It's been rewarding in many ways, but it's also been very tough. But if I were definitely able to do it again, if I had the option of doing it again, or if I need to do it again, I would do it again. So I think that kind of speaks volumes on my experience here so far.
100% agree. 100% agree. Like I said, there's times it's not easy all the way through, but there's times that are tough. But I think overall, if there's anything else that I can do, is just probably be medicine. I can't see myself doing anything else but medicine. So. All right, so let's continue and talk about what else you need in addition to the classwork. So, like I talked about, community service, kind of engage in your community, get involved in any way possible. It doesn't have to be, I don't know, I can't put it, because people usually think of it like, you have to be involved in something big. It doesn't have to be that big. You can kind of create your own clubs at school. Like I said, I talked about soccer. I enjoy sports, so that's why you can always talk about that. Have that in your resume, that you join teams, that you're part of teams, volunteer. For clinical experience, that's different. Everybody does different things. A lot of people would go to hospital just to shadow. Some people actually, and again, this volunteer experience doesn't have to be entirely free. You can actually get paid and still count it as a clinical experience. For example, because there's some jobs like scribing, you can do scribing. Work at a hospital and scribe for some doctors. It's good in a way because you'll learn how, what it takes to be a doctor. What is it like, on a daily basis to be a physician. So that's one idea, but it doesn't have to be that. You can also do, feel free to jump in if you have any other ideas.
Yeah, honestly, you can do anything. You can do Habitat for Humanity. You can do, it doesn't really necessarily have to be related to healthcare. It's something that you enjoy, and it shows that you're a well-rounded individual. That's the whole idea behind community service, is that, to show that you have something in your life other than just taking classes.
Right, because that kind of comes big again on your interview day. Interview day, they'll ask you, and it depends. Interviews, different type of interview styles nowadays, but mainly they can ask you, what did you do before you came to medical school? Obviously, they already know, for example, you already know your GPA. They already know your MCAT score. They're not going to ask you about that again, But they can ask you about what else have you done. How did that impact you as a person? How does that change you as a person? How did that help you grow, personally? So they can ask out all these questions, kind of get to know who you are, because in the interview did actually some of the interview questions are not even about medical school. For example, I remember one of the questions they asked me was about I don't recall, if someone, if a classmate of mine was going through some sort of a hardship, how would you help? That was just a question. There's no right or wrong answer. You can answer in any way that you wish. That you can basically say, I don't want to help that person. Obviously, that's not the right answer, but you got to figure out, So they just kind of want to see how you answer it. Basically, to see who you are as a person. Hey, Acid, want to add anything? Yeah, Acid.
Yeah, about the interview process. So it's actually kind of a funny place to be, because sometimes interviewers actually want to put you in a place that kind of makes you feel uncomfortable. It kind of puts you in a way you're trying to pick the best answer. It's nothing that's right or wrong, but it's more of seeing how you're able to make an idea or say something and to back it up. And they're basically saying if you are able to kind of be under fire in a way and able to explain yourself as well. So it's the interview process, and overall it's a learning environment. Is that you definitely learn a lot from it. However, it's something that it's definitely something that you have to experience first. You have to also practice that. You have to get experience with it. But once you do, it definitely helps you out quite a bit to get into school. It's a crucial part of getting into medical school.
That's what I'm saying. If you get involved in other stuff other than just school, for example, if you even get a job, that's an experience in itself. Get a job because you're gonna get interviewed when you go any job. You get interviewed. Kind of get that experience of what is it like to be on the other side of the table when people ask you questions. Because everybody gets nervous. When you go the first time for a job or for an interview. So it's always good, kind of give you that experience. That's why definitely recommend getting involved in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be volunteering. It doesn't have to be a job. It can be anything outside of school. To get involved in some way, shape, or form before you apply to medical school. Because on the application day, they will ask you, what have you done? You have to list at least minimum of 10 things. And those 10 things don't have to be, 10 different things, but it can be, for example, let's say you did volunteering, at a hospital. That counts for 2 things. It counts as volunteering and also counts for clinical experience. So you can, categorize those things to different classes, I guess.
And I think what we'll try and kind of get through the rest of the presentation a little faster so that we have a little bit more time for questions.
Right.
Things like that.
So next is we got is the research experience, and that could be in anything. Again, there's different types of research. You don't have to be basic science research where you in the lab, because a lot of people think it has to be that way. It has to be that kind of research where you're in the lab, mixing bottles and stuff. I never did that. So personally, my research experience was more clinical, where I worked at a cardiology clinic, where basically we're testing different type of drugs to see how their efficacy and how they work and stuff like that. So that was my kind of experience. To me, it was more enjoyable because I got to interact with people. I got to learn a little bit about how to take blood pressure and stuff like that. So it was more clinical at the same time as well as research experience, because again, I had to go again in the back, put in all this data in and kind of follow up with the patients, see how they're doing and stuff. So it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be in clinical. You can do, for example, for example, if I'm a music major, and you did some sort of research on the instruments and how they, how the different type of instrument in Africa, for example, in Sudan or something like that, and that was a research that counts too. So
yeah, and for me, I did the research that I did was somewhat clinical. I did research in melanoma when I was in school. So you can do. There's a variety of different kinds of research that you can do. So as long as you find something that you enjoy, I think it's a good addition to your resume, to your application.
Right. Nowadays, because it's very competitive, almost everyone would have some sort of research experience under their belt. So I would definitely recommend getting some sort of experience. I didn't have to publish, because a lot of people would like to get that publication, get their name out there. So like I haven't published. I wasn't fortunate enough where I was published a paper or anything like that. But my research experience counted. So just saying. All right. So next is the clinical experience, like we talked about. You can get as simple as shadowing in a position, which basically gives you an idea of what is it like to be a physician, work in hospitals, work in different areas of field. Like for example, there's like some certificates you can gain throughout. For example, you can get a certificate in phlebotomy, which is where you can be able to draw blood. That could be experience. You get paid, get the clinical experience, kind of get engaged in that environment. It depends from program to program. It's different. I got an MA, which is medical assisting diploma when I was in undergrad. Helped me too, because got me, for my own experience, I wasn't exactly sure if medicine was for me. So that's why I kind of did the medical assisting in the beginning, just to see if I would like it. Because if I wouldn't like it from doing the medical assisting, I wouldn't bother going to medical school for 4 years, getting through the loans and stuff like that. So that was definitely something you can consider too. All right, so clinical experience can be in anything like I said. Next is letter of recommendations. That's why getting the good GPA and staying, and kind of sitting in the front can help. No, you don't have to sit in the front. You don't have to sit in the front to say, to stand out. You can sit anywhere and just get basically letter of recommendation, kind of get involved with it. That's something that I didn't do. I kind of learned later, because I was more of a student that would just show up to class and just leave right after. I never got to talk to my teacher or anything like that. I learned the hard way. towards my junior and senior. And then when I finally realized that I needed this letter of recommendation because I was just the type of guy who showed up to class and just left. So one recommendation, if you're kind of like me in that way, I would say make up questions. Just go to the office, even if it's a question that you already know the answer to. And that's kind of like what I did. If you already know the answer to the question, just go and ask, I need help with this topic. Just go and ask. And a lot of the professors do like that. They like people coming in because a lot of times they're just sitting in the office doing nothing essentially. So I would recommend definitely forming that relationship with the professors.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also get letters of recommendations that are from your other experiences. So, your community service, your research, and things like that, that can also contribute to your letter. So you kind of want to have a diverse portfolio of recommendation letters. Right?
And so typically, like, I was listed here in the slide, they recommend between 4 to 5 letters of recommendation. So it's, again, so I'll probably talk about the dental school requirement, but for medical school in general, you would like to see a letter of recommendation from a science professor, a letter from, like, for example, biology, chemistry, a letter from a non-science teacher. If you have taken like English classes, psychology classes, any kind of non-science, non-hard science classes, and again, you need a letter from a clinical experience. For example, a physician letter, that's 3. And then you can have an additional letter from any volunteer service you've done. So that could be from anybody, essentially. Yeah. So I don't know if the dental school has a different.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, honestly. Yeah. It's
Okay. All right. And then just some of the leadership and anything any hobbies, whatever you like. That's the message. Don't feel there's a need that you need to get involved in something that you don't like. Get involved in the stuff that you're really passionate about, stuff that you really enjoy, because it'll be worthwhile. Because when you go on the interview, you can talk about it for a long time. Because they ask you about it, you can easily talk about it. I have no problem talking about it. But because I'll be very honest, because I didn't know, I got into those places where I felt like I needed to get into, but I wasn't happy in it. So didn't really change my, because I didn't grow personally from it. I didn't gain anything professionally from it. So it wasn't wise from my end. But again, I learned that's why I'm passing this to you guys, kind of like this from my experience. I don't know if you want to add anything. Someone reacted, you're on the line.
No, I mean, it's the same. Yeah, just make sure that you get involved in things that you're passionate about, because that'll show through. If it's something that you didn't like and you're sitting there and you're talking to them during an interview, they're going to see right through all of that. So they want to know that you're, it's kind of like being well-rounded. Again, you want to make sure it's something that you enjoy. That's the important thing.
Okay. All right. And then the next slide, we're just going to have some just data, general data of what, what are the scores like. So as you can see, I don't know, because I'm not familiar with the new scoring system, so I can't really speak to it. But you can see the mean score for the MCAT for the applicants about a 500, which I'm not sure if that's a good score or bad score. I don't know. So I can't really speak to it. I'm not familiar with it. But once we get into more, we're going to do our own research, kind of help you out, and then we'll find out more. And we also have like the MCAT. We have like a lecture dedicated to the MCAT. We can talk about that more. And then finally, that's the more important. We have SAMA. Through SAMA Juniors, we have this mentorship program. So basically, if you guys are interested, you can always sign up. We have some mentors. So basically, those mentors are going to be assigned to you one-on-one to talk to you, kind of go through your portfolio, where you're at on your process, and kind of go through, talk to you about what you need, or what you need to improve on, kind of be a better applicant once you apply to med school. And it's just basically go through the SAMA website, and once we're done with this session, I'll post it on the Facebook event page, and then you can just log in, and we'll get your info, and then we'll contact you and set up your mentor. At the same time, too, I want to give a shout out if there's anyone who is in medical school, who's in medical school currently, who's watching this video, is in dental school, pharmacy school, please reach out to us, because we definitely need more mentors too, so that that way we can keep the ratio as at least we'll keep it as 4-to-1. So basically 4 mentees to 1 mentor. So that way it'll be beneficial for both for the mentees, because we don't want it to be too much on the mentees, on the mentors themselves, but at the same time we want the mentors, the mentees to benefit the most. So please, if you have in the audience, if you have some any medical student, pharmacy student, physicians current physicians who are willing to help us out, please reach out. All right. So now questions. Yes.
Do they look at science GPA?
Yes, that's a good point. So the question, do they care about the science GPA? So when you apply to med school, they look at your overall GPA, and then they look at your science GPA and non-science GPA. So they have a different calculation to see how you did in the sciences versus the non-sciences versus your cumulative GPA. All right. And just before to move on to the question, I just want to summarize just because I know we threw a lot of information at you guys. I want to make sure that you guys kind of got the gist of it. So medical school classes, taking the required classes, it doesn't matter what major. It can be any major as long as you fulfill the requirement classes. That's one. And doing well, so good GPA. MCAT is second. And then doing the other extracurricular activities like, volunteering, clinical experience, all of that. And then letters of recommendation and interviewing and all the other process. So that's basically it. Other questions before we go into, because we already have some questions that are that we have here already that we can discuss. But in the meantime, any questions before we go to these questions? Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for the dental school program.
Yeah.
I know I missed the first part of the lecture. I just need to know a couple of study guides. What would you recommend, a good study book?
Like for the
Or a
DAT?
practice question, or
Yeah,
something that
so
will get me into the mode,
yeah,
of preparation.
I definitely recommend the DAT Destroyer. It's a really good book for going through all the sciences, and it's structured so that it's very, very difficult. So the first time you do it, again, you probably won't do as well. You might get 10% of the questions right, and that's fine. Don't get discouraged. It's designed to challenge you. And then what you do is as you go through that book more and more times, you start to get a lot better at reasoning through those questions. And it's the skills that you learn through going through that book that help you a lot during the exam.
Does it provide the answers to? Or
It does, yeah.
explanations?
Yeah, so it'll give you for each question, it'll give you a paragraph explanation, and we'll go through the exact thought process for it so that you can kind of capture that.
I'm sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
If I have an experience, I work in mental health.
Okay.
Would that still count?
Yeah, anything that you
I work
do.
in a hospital.
Yeah.
Still.
No, absolutely.
I know
Yeah.
it's not related to dental school. But
Yeah, it's honestly, it doesn't matter as long as it's something that you're doing and you're passionate about it, and it is in the healthcare field. So that's definitely something that can contribute to your application. So I definitely would highlight that and include that for sure.
So I think the general message is, and obviously I speak for medical school, but I feel it's very similar to dental school. The general message is why they want you to see if you have done other stuff. Basically, you want to make sure that you can you're able to go through medical school because it's very rigorous programs. All these programs are very rigorous. It takes a lot of time to make sure you're well-rounded. Basically, you're a regular person gone through all this stuff and did fine. So that's basically what they're looking for. Someone who's we keep throwing out that word well-rounded. I don't know what it means, but basically anything makes you a well-rounded person. They keep throwing it out there, but basically who you are as a person. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, it just means that basically they want to see that you have something going on more than just sitting in a classroom and taking exams. They want to see you as a whole, what you're interested in, and because that contributes to you being a practitioner and how you relate to people more so than anything. I mean, med school, dental school will give you the knowledge, but your personality is essentially how you relate to the patients, and I think that's almost as important, if not more so in some cases, to be able to put patients at ease and take care of them in a good way. So.
Right, and then go ahead.
So what's the difference between the DO and MD degree?
Okay. Right, so good question. So we have a question. What is the difference between MD and DO? So we have allopathic, which is MD, and osteopathic, DO. I'm actually gonna throw one out there to get confused, you guys. There's another one called ND. So there's naturopathic. So there's 3 different paths that you can get in, for getting medicine. So allopathic is what we think of normally of Western medicine. Just your science, medicine that is practiced through sciences and stuff like that. So that's your typical what you think of. Your product is a little different from manipulation. So you learn what an MD learns, and then on top of it, you learn bone manipulation. There are some theories that through bone manipulation you can heal people. So I can't really speak to it because I haven't gone through the DO programs. So I can't really say what those are, but that's mainly the difference. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you go to a DO school, an MD school, if you decide to practice as a DO, you can. But essentially, as a DO, you have an extra tool under your belt, which is how to manipulate the bone to heal people. But you don't have to do it. I mean, they teach you it, but you don't have to do it. You can still practice as an MD with the DO, the same program, go through the same residency, it applies to the same residency program. So I don't know if that helps you answer your question.
And MD-PhD.
So what's MD-PhD? In school, they offer a lot of the dual programs. For example, you can do, your regular 4 years of medical school, just, you end up being just an MD, nothing else. But then some people would like to invest more time and get a PhD while in med school. Because normally you would have to apply to grad school. If you apply to a med school, you basically accepted to both. So once you're done with the first 2 years, then PhD. And then once you're done with the PhD, you come back and finish your med school. So it's a long process. But people do it. There's pros and cons. I'm not in that program, that program, so I can't speak to it. One of the benefits, at least, it pays you. So that's you don't have to worry about loans or anything like that. So that's one benefit of being in the PhD MD program. But also you don't have to do MD PhD, there's MD JD, which is basically go into law and medical school at the same time. There's also MD math. I can't requirement those.
So if you want to pursue that career path, you have to look at the specific program and see what they require. And more often than not, you end up applying to both programs simultaneously, and you have to get into both programs in order for you to do it. So, you apply to the PhD program and the MD program simultaneously.
More question with the Salon. I know it's a medical organization.
Right.
Do they have dental too? Can I get a dental mentor? That's
right.
What I'm trying.
And we're glad we finally got Dr. Hassam on board. So now he'll definitely help out. So we didn't have one before, but Dr. Hassam has helped him. Yeah. All right. So, we're still kind of acquiring to get more mentors in different fields. Not so far, just medicine. It's kind of just biased for medicine because we don't have anyone else in the other fields who is volunteering to help out. But once we get more, we definitely can get more mentors. Other questions before we move on to the questions on the Facebook page? Okay. All right, so question 1. So this question, talking about, I'll read it in Arabic. So it's asking فرصة لستيب صعبة لزول يتخرج ويشتغل برا. ما زي زول يشتغل فريش هنا. فهل ممكن زول يخش الميديكال سكول من سنة 6 أو 5؟ Basically the question is asking is, can you, let's say you haven't finished medical school in Sudan or somewhere else, outside of the US, will you be able to get into medical school and kind of just continue on from where you left off? That question, I don't think it's possible. But so my recommendation, if you're in that position where you're almost done with medical school somewhere else, I would say finish medical school there, because if you're there, you still have to take because even us as U.S. grad students, we still have to take the same test. We still have to take step 1, step 2, step 3, all those tests. So I would definitely, from that situation, definitely say finish medical school wherever you're at, and then come back and do the steps, the steps that you have to take. Yeah. Second question. Okay, this question for dental school. Yeah. What are the different paths for residency, the DDS versus residency pathways? I'm not sure.
Oh, like DDS versus what, DMD?
I think so.
Okay, so
But the DDS or DMD versus residency, going to residency?
Yeah. That's
Oh, so I mean, those are kind of two separate things. DMD and I guess DMD is or DDS is the path through dental school. So different dental schools can give you either of those 2 degrees. There's no real difference as far as practice, but a DMD program, the way they structure their curriculum is a lot more. It's like a more system based. So it's instead of taking like a general anatomy course or a general physiology course, they do systems. So you'll do like heart and lung, and you'll do anatomy, physiology, histology, pharmacology, everything to do with that system. So that's kind of the program that I went through. Whereas the DDS program, it's the more traditional, where you'll do like an anatomy and physiology course, you'll do a histology course, etc. But you can go. It doesn't matter either way. You can go into dentistry, and you can graduate with that and practice. So after that, going into residency, there's many different types of residencies in dentistry. You can do a general practice residency, essentially right after dental school, which is, or an AEGD, an advanced education in general dentistry. And what those are, usually it's like a 1-year additional training, and you can get a lot more advanced training in things that you don't necessarily get in dental school. And so it makes you a much better general practitioner. If you wanted to specialize, there are various fields. There's endodontics, which I have done, and that deals more with saving teeth and doing root canal therapy and surgery, things like that. There's oral surgery, or there's orthodontics, which is, they usually do with braces and straightening teeth. Periodontics, which is gum health and things like that. So if you're interested in going to specialize, I would say before you do that, if you haven't gotten into dental school, I would wait to kind of be very specific about a specific specialty, because once you get into dental school, you might end up liking something different. And once you're there and you have questions about maybe going into a specialty, then we can talk a little bit more about that. But that's the differences.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sam.
Yeah.
So next question, what should I do? I'm still in high school. I'm interested in medicine. So that's the next question. So for people in high school, that's actually very good that you're thinking about your future very early on. That's very good. But there's not really much that I would say I would recommend doing. But if you're already thinking about medical school, you can start shadowing at that point. Definitely for people in high school, definitely recommend shadowing physicians, kind of see what is it like to be in medicine. Second thing I would say, figure out what majors you would like to pick. That's the second major thing, because once you're in college, you can't really get to medical school straight from high school. So you have to think about, what major you want to pick. So kind of think of that. What subjects you liked in high school and what majors that kind of interest you. And for parents, please don't push your kids. Let them pick what they want. And then, because I feel like this question coming from a parent. So please, parents, please push your kids. Let them pick what they like and what they enjoy, because they'll figure it out. They will know what they can do.
I agree 100%. I think that a lot of times people kind of get pushed into these fields. And just as a side note, with dentistry, it's the most expensive graduate training that you can receive in the U.S. So most people that graduate from dental school average anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 worth of debt. So if you go into dentistry, you got to make sure that it's something that you really, really want to do. So do not get pushed into it by parents or anyone else. Make sure you shadow. Make sure you enjoy it. The debt, it's something that you'll over time you'll be able to pay it, but you don't want to go into a field, be miserable in that field, and then have that hanging over your head. So you want to make sure that you like it before you do it.
Yeah.
Looking for you, you're gonna pay for it. So.
Yeah.
Exactly, you're gonna pay for it.
Parents,
so make sure you don't.
So parents,
don't
it's
get
for
pushed
you.
into it. Yeah.
So that's the point. So it's all about money. So you gotta make sure before you invest in something like that, make sure that that the kids really wants it. I mean, it's similar to medical school. Not to discourage you about the money, because there's always loans. Because there's different ways you can, of how you can pay for medical school. That's another topic. There's scholarships. There's different repayment programs that you can do to help you with payment. But in the bigger picture, yes, you gotta consider that. Consider that big sum lump that you gotta pay. You gotta pay, and it's very expensive. There's some. There's some states. I'm not sure if people are watching from Texas, from North Carolina. They have better education systems. Then I have to pay not nearly as much as other states. Arizona, because I go to. Huh?
ASU is expensive.
Arizona schools are, I'll say in average, and the kind of middle. They're not the most expensive, but they're not, least expensive either. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I would say that, once you're ready to make that commitment and you're thinking about applying to, for example, medical school or dental school, get in touch with one of us so that we can help guide you, because there's some programs that are they're more willing to give scholarships, especially minority students and things like that. So, had I known certain things when I had gone through the process, I probably would have made some different choices as far as going to which schools and things like that. Not that I didn't like my school. I love my school and I got a great training there, but I think that, looking back, there definitely could have been better options. So you want to make sure that that's the whole idea with mentorship, is that you can have somebody who's been through it, can help you to kind of do it in a much better way. And so that when you graduate, you don't have as many loans and things like that. Right. So it's helpful.
Yeah, I don't know, about the mentorship. So the way how we want to develop that mentorship is like, I don't have, for lack of a better word, a brotherhood, kind of basically you reach out to your mentor and kind of like ask any questions, any point question. It doesn't even have to be about the process. It can be even, how do I study for this subject? How did you study for this subject when you were in college? How did you study for OChem? How did you study for Gen Chem? How did you study for whatever? Kind of that question. How did you pick your schedule for, this particular semester? Because I want to do volunteering. I want to, do some research. How can I fit those classes on my schedule? So stuff like that. It doesn't have to be just necessarily about getting to medical school, the actual application process. It could be about, the whole picture. So. Okay, yeah, I said, sorry, we're leaving you hanging, so go ahead.
Are you guys able to hear me? I don't know if I'm on mute.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I think what helped me get into school was definitely the people around me, and the people I had that I could ask questions to. I can give them a call. I can email them. Those people played a very crucial part of me getting into school. So that's what the whole part of the Sama mentorship program is, to kind of connect people with people who have already gone through the process, learn from their mistakes, see what they've done as well that helped them out, and hopefully making it easier for people who are also applying in future cycles as well.
Right. I just want to add to, because our group is Sam is Junior is the new group, so we're still building, and we're still trying to extend our program. But one of our visions actually, once Sam Junior is established enough, we have Sam as an organization as a whole, been out there for a while. They already have some programs that go yearly to Sudan to help out and stuff, and they have some great physicians that do that work. So we can always link up those physicians to our mentees, so that way you get your clinical experience, your shadowing experience, stuff like that through them. But that again, depends on where you're located and where those physicians are. So kind of like, kind of pair those up too. So there's a lot coming. So kind of, that's why we want you to join us, and hopefully, you'll benefit somehow. So next, you want to add?
No? Okay.
So next question. Is it better to get some medical assistant experience from the U.S. or shadowing a physician in the U.S. or Sudan or somewhere else? To answer that question, it could be anywhere. You can get that experience from anywhere. So let's say you coming from Sudan straight up, coming from anywhere, from Gulf straight, any experience that you've done prior to medical school counts. As long as you, that's one thing I would definitely want to stress about is, once you join the mentorship program, we're going to create a portfolio. Once you sit down with you one-on-one, kind of create a portfolio, some sort of a document that you want to list all their experiences. I don't know if a lot of people are like me. I forget a lot. I don't have a good memory. So even if I do a lot of stuff, I forget about them, even though I enjoy them and been doing it for a long time, but I forget. That's why I always I like to keep that, write down, what I've done, what I liked about what I've done and what I didn't like. So that's something to keep in mind. Whatever you do, always write it down. It doesn't matter what experience. To you, it might seem, small experience, little. You might belittle it, but if that's even a word, but definitely keep it, write it down, because it'll someday at some point during an interview, during an application, it'll come and then you'll know, oh yeah, I did that. That really counted. So, want to add anything, Hassan?
Yeah, I think it's just important to keep a CV of all your activities. I think that like he's saying, when it comes time for your application, it's easy that you can just kind of take that and just plug it right in instead of kind of trying to think back and figure out what you did, when you did it, who was there, and things like that. So it's important to kind of keep track.
So this is a question, actually more dental question. So, so the question is, this person is studying dental hygiene.
Okay.
Kind of what kind of advice you kind of, I mean, just kind of general advice. She's in semester, just her second semester.
Yeah.
What kind of general advice you would give them in that field, and then thinking about dental school in the future?
Okay, so with dental hygiene, honestly, you have coming out of that program, you have many job opportunities straight out of school. So I think that's if you are planning on going to dental school, that's a great stepping stone. Especially a lot of people can get a bachelor's in dental hygiene, so that when you are planning on going to dental school and things like that, you might even be able to work a little bit while you're going through that process. So it's helpful, and I think that that just makes your application stronger. If you're planning on going further, it's a great thing to have on your resume.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hassan. So next question. So this question, I'll read in Arabic. So لاحظت بعض الأسر بدأت ترسل أولادها لدراسة الطب خارج أمريكا مثل الهند أو مصر أو حتى السودان بحجة إنها أرخص وأوفر للوقت. السؤال أيهما أجدى، دراسة الطب داخل أمريكا أو برا، أو مميزات أو سلبيات، وكل الخيارات يعني. The question is asking if, because some people are deciding to study medical school outside of the country, in Sudan. Some people do it in the Caribbean as well too, and basically any place outside of the U.S. For financing reasons, for whatever reasons. Definitely recommend. Nothing against it. You can do that. If you're thinking about it in terms of saving money, yes, that's definitely a good idea to do. But at the same time, if you're thinking about money here in the U.S., there's always financing available. There's loans, there's repayment programs, there's stuff like that. So that should deter you away from not considering a school in the U.S. As far as pros and cons, U.S. school versus IMGs, that's what we call them, international medical graduates. Basically, those people who have gone through programs outside of the U.S. and then graduate. That's just the terminology that they use. International medical graduate, IMGs. So they can still get into U.S. programs, residencies, practice medicine in the U.S. But the problem here, is because the residency programs are very limited as far as positions, and they haven't increased in size for the longest time. So those international students, they have to compete with U.S. grads, and that number is also increasing. So that you can see the picture. So there's very, the seats are very limited. Competition is very high. So people coming out of outside of the U.S., I would say they have tougher time getting into those residencies versus U.S. grads, and that's just a fact. So what I would say is, if you're thinking about medical school takes a long time in the U.S. versus Sudan or versus somewhere else, I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's true, because if you think about it in terms of length, you might save a year or two in doing that, but over the long run, you might complete your education in the U.S. That's at least that's my 2 cents. As far as because you're gonna have harder time getting in, and it's not about taking different tests, because international students, they still take the same test as grad students. It's not to go through the same test, because a lot of people are under the assumption that since you have done your medical school in Sudan or somewhere else outside of the U.S., they have some special tests that they got to take. No, that's not the case at all. I just want to clarify that and make that a point. You still have to take the same exact test. You have to go through step 1, step 2, step 3, all those licensing exams. This is not that they talk about this licensing exam, but I'm just for those people who are interested in that topic. So definitely consider, if you're in the U.S. or I guess in Canada, definitely consider doing it here, because Canada is actually, even though it's a different country, but they still actually take their students, so they don't consider them technically IMGs. So yes, I don't know if you want to add or.
Yeah, so it's not end all be all for people who are international graduates applying to schools within America. I mean, within the last probably 20 years, it's gotten much more difficult in order to get American residencies if you're an international medical graduate. However, there's also ways that can help you get into residencies within America. You could also do extended research out here. You can do shadowing. You could also do some type of observership within hospitals as well too. Sometimes as many teaching hospitals will put 6 months observerships for international medical graduates specifically in order to increase their resume and give them some medical experience, so when they do apply for residencies, they can have that to present for the interview. Also too, and it's crucial for international students, but it's not really nice to hear it, but you need to really do well on both step 1 and step 2, just because you are competing with the American graduates.
So again, nothing against being an international student, not at all. But I'm saying if you're already fortunate enough to be in the U.S., some will definitely recommend staying in the U.S. because just increases your chances, makes it a lot easier once you apply for residency spots and stuff like that. But if it's not the case for you, there's nothing against it. You can still finish your training in Sudan, come back, and then do your exams. So I'm happy to talk a little bit dental school if it's the same.
So for us in dentistry, if you're an international graduate and you come to the U.S., a lot of times what ends up happening is you end up having to go back to dental school and do at least the last 2 years of dental school. Sometimes it's second, third, and fourth year. So you actually don't end up saving any time at all, and in fact, it ends up delaying your being able to practice, and you end up spending just as much for the most part as far as loans, things like that, in order for you to become a practitioner in the U.S. So I would say with dentistry, if you are already in the U.S., I would highly recommend that you stay and you try and figure out ways where you can get some sort of scholarships and things like that to go to school here. If you are an international graduate and you're coming to the U.S. For the time you didn't necessarily grow up here, there are definitely options for you for getting your degree accredited and then going through those kinds of programs. So it's where you said.
Yeah, same recommendation for medical school. The only fortunate thing, you don't have to repeat medical school per se. You still can go, doing your schooling somewhere else, but you still have to go through the same exams and everything. And just another Sam had this position there for a while, but unfortunately, if you don't live in a state where where Sam currently offers the services, it's might be a little tough to get into those experiences. So, but Sam is growing, so hopefully in the future we might recruit more physicians that are nationwide, everywhere. So it doesn't matter where you at, you can find a physician that is SAMA member that we can link you with. But for also international students, previously going to school, dental school, has a conference coming up in June. Definitely recommend everyone going there. A lot of networks, great conference, meet a lot of people with different experiences, stuff like that. There's a lot of workshops that are going to be there. There's going to be a workshop for this is for IMGs where we're going to talk about step 1 preparation, kind of talk about what is good and what's not, versus how to prep for step 1 and step 2 and stuff like that. There's us coming up in June, dates and stuff like that. You can follow on the website, Sam's main website. June 22nd. June 22nd is the conference date. It'll be in Michigan, I believe. Michigan. So this year they'll be in Michigan. Feel free to sign up. It's on the website. Definitely encourage you to go there. Kind of follow up on that information as far as registration and the fees and all of that. All on Sam's website. So mentorship again. Sign up if you're an IMG. I will still even though we're not the mentees currently that that our mentors are now are volunteer to mentor. A lot of us are not familiar with the IMG process, but as soon as we have some more people to volunteer board, they're not required. Can't do that, but as soon as we do, we'll definitely announce it, and everybody, anybody who's interested in anyone who's an IMG is interested in joining can have someone for. Okay. Next question. Yeah, I don't know if there's more questions. I know that's most of the questions. More questions. More questions, the audience. Okay. Cool. Oh, thank you guys for having us, and hopefully that was helpful. We'll continue to have more of those seminars. I mean, hopefully by then we should be more familiar with the technology, because today apparently we have so much difficulties. We couldn't get it, get it on time, even though we had some. We did a few tests during the week to see if it if it works or not. But unfortunately, we ran into those problems. Hopefully, in the future it'll be much better. Again, sign up. Again, number one, sign up for Sama Mentorship program, so that way we'll link you up with your mentor. Second, just reach out for any questions. Sam?
Yeah, just, thank you guys for coming out and, listening to us, kind of giving you, whatever information that can hopefully be helpful to you in your future endeavors. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm here for those who are interested in going into the dental field, and, I'll help you as much as I can.
All right, that's it.
All right, thanks for tuning in, guys. Yeah, again, if you guys have any more questions, do not hesitate to reach out to us at any moment at all.
Yep. Any more questions before we move on? I'll just want to quickly run through the Facebook page and YouTube page just to make sure there's no more questions that we haven't answered. Let me see.
This might sound like a silly question, but how's your sleep schedule?
Actually, it's not a silly question. There's a question from the audience here in Arizona. What's the sleep schedule? Actually, it doesn't even a schedule. I don't know. I don't think there's a sleep. I don't think there's very minimum. Very minimum, I would say. But you do get sleep. You do get sleep. You gotta work it out. That's one of the things. Actually, one of the things you gotta work on is time management. It's key in medical school. When to study, when to do your clinic work, all that stuff. You gotta fit it in somehow. And you always have to study. So if you think about when to study, always every day you gotta study. And that's not, it's actually fun. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you really like it, it's actually enjoying. It's very enjoyable. I don't know. I found it very enjoyable when I study. That's what I'm saying. You got to find out first if you like it, and if you do, you will enjoy it. And I don't know if Hassam, like Hassam Yasser.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I think dental school is also really challenging. Especially the first 2 years where it's very didactic heavy. You'll find that you will definitely lose a little bit of sleep during those first 2 years, but like we were saying, it's rewarding. If it's something that you enjoy, you won't really feel the pressure as much. And if you are at a point where you feel like you're overwhelmed, that's what mentors are for. Again, you can reach out to people and they'll kind of help you. So
some people have questions. They have some questions that were answered. So okay, you guys can just wait for a minute or two.
Okay. So before we get, we have more questions coming. So in the meantime, if anyone has more questions, feel free. Post on the Facebook page, the event page, or on the YouTube channel. And hold on one second, I gotta charge my phone because we're gonna run into other difficulties. 1 second. All right. So while we're waiting,
no, I was just looking to see if there's any more questions, but I don't really see anything coming up.
طيب بص الستبس صعبة الزول يتخرج يشتغل برا ما ادري ايش بس هل ممكن الزول يلقى فرصة في ميديكال كولج لساتها او حتى 5 طب ويواصل الستبس؟
Yeah,
I think we went over.
Yeah, I kind of went over with that question actually, but I can repeat it again. That's fine. So the question is, if you study somewhere else, is it better? Can you come into the US and kind of finish off where you left off? as far as تقدر تخلص يعني من سنة 5 يقول له يعني ياخذ حجاب بالعربي. فالسؤال بالحجاب بالعربي سأل انه الواحد لو قرب سنة 5 وسنة 6 هل ممكن يجي في امريكا يخلص عدد سنينه ويعني وما يحتاج يمتحن الستاب؟ فالستاب لازم الواحد ياخده، ما فارقه اذا انت قريت في السودان برا في امريكا، اي واحد بياخده. فما ممكن انت تخلص يعني لانه السيستم شويه مختلف. الطب في امريكا 4 سنين، في السودان يعني 5 إلى 6 سنة. فطريقه تعادل على الكلاسات وتعادلها مع امريكا شويه بتكون صعبه. فاذا الواحد اوريدي في السودان سنه 5 او سنه 6 يخلص طوالي، يخلص سنه 5 او سنه 6 ويجي يمتحن الستاب. لكن انا يعني بحبذ انت لو في السودان سنه 5 او 6 تمتحن ستيب 1 وانت بتقرا، بقول لك اسهل لان المعلومات بتكون يعني فريش، ما زي الزول يكون اتخرج وكده. ف فنحن ممكن دي نعملها في حلقه ثانيه، يعني نواصل انه نتكلم كيف انه الستيب بالنسبه لدول اي ام دي كيف يتجاه، يعني طبعا نفس الحاجه، لانه زول امتحن في امريكا او في برا السودان يمتحن نفس الامتحان. فممكن يعني الواحد ممكن يجهز للستيب 1 في اي وقت، لكن انت سنه 5 او 6 خلص في السودان. كان في سؤال؟ Okay.
It's on Facebook, so just waiting. I think it's one of the last few questions.
So the more questions. So in the meantime, I'll talk about a little bit about the mentorship program. Like I said, so we're gonna offer key is mentorship. You know, kind of that have that relationship one-on-one with your mentor. Kind of get to know you in person as far as where you at in the spectrum. Okay, are you from high school, like some of the people that reached out to us, or are you in college? Are you even past college, getting into master's programs, stuff like that? Kind of see where you at, and then see the areas of where you need improvement, and then we can help you in those areas. For example, some of the things that we're planning to do, we still haven't figured out the details yet of that. For example, with the pre-meds is doing some community service, because a lot of people would love to kind of join and help out with volunteering. So we want to do more of like kind of blood pressure screening, diabetes screening in the community. So that's stuff that we can always have the pre-meds always come and help. So at least for Arizona people, that's definitely something coming up to look forward to. Other states, right now we have the mentors in California, in Boston, so those can also set up some events there. So people in those areas, they can kind of look out for those events coming up.
So I have a question. Is there a link or a group where if somebody didn't catch up the live session and they have questions afterwards for you guys, for the mentors to be addressed at a later point? Or
okay, so the question is, after this live session is over, there's any way for for people to ask questions? You can always go on to the Facebook event page that where find all the information about this live session, so you can post questions there, and then we'll try to answer them as we can.
Yeah, sounds good.
One more question. What is the best way to find researches to get in? I'm not sure if it's for an IMG or just
US grad. So actually, the answer to the question is going to be the same for both. So the answer is, how do I get involved in research? It's tough. I'm telling you that right now, to get into research, but I think it's just reaching out. That's the key point. It's just reaching out, getting on an email. Because I remember this is what I used, because for me, at least, I'm talking for my experience, it was a little tough for me to get into research spots. Because again, there's a lot of competition, a lot of people already seeking the same stuff, so I would say just go through your school website and see what departments, see the department that you're interested in. For example, if you're interested in biology, doing research in that area, I would go to the main website and see what research areas are available. Kind of email those professors and see if they can take you in. Because trust me, I tried so many times. It's not like, if you don't get in the first time, you're like, oh, it's game over. No, you just gotta keep trying. Because I've tried multiple times, and I got many rejections. That's why at some point, I'm telling you, medical school, there's medical, when you apply to medical school, you get used to rejection. You'll be just okay. It's just a part of life. You get rejected all the time. But it's just part of it. You just got to keep applying, reaching out, sending out emails, and just never give up. Down school, probably similar.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, and it's through Simon mentorship. I mean, hopefully if we can share our own experiences, still as far like what people kind of reach out for, you can reach out to the same people if they're still available. So that's another option too. IMG, I'll say the same thing for IMGs or yours. Just go through the website, see what research. For example, if you're in a state, go to the schools that are public schools. The private school, most of them, I don't think they have offer research opportunity. I don't think so.
It depends. I mean, I think it just kind of it's kind of dependent on the different departments, and sometimes if it's like a med school or dental school, you can get affiliated. If like the university that you go to has a dental or med school, you can reach out to some of the doctors or research professors in various fields and see if you can get research in that department. So, and that's another way to do it.
Yeah. I don't have more questions. I'll check again into the Facebook page, see if there are more questions.
Yeah, I mean, if we can do like a hashtag on our Facebook page of
Right.
mentorship.
Right. So yeah, that's a great point. So now, please, if you have any questions, one, you type the question, please hashtag SAMA Juniors, SAMAJRS. Hashtag SAMA, at the end of your question, just hashtag SAMA, so that way we know, so we can get to your questions, so that way you can have your questions answered. Please do that. Hashtag SAMA Juniors at the end of your question, please. I'm gonna go in. More questions.
No more questions.
What's the hashtag name?
SAMA Juniors. So SAMAJRS, one word. SAMA Junior, one word. SAMAJRS.
You can probably conclude now since you don't really have any more questions.
It's just no more questions. So thank you guys again for coming out. Hopefully this session was helpful. I know we kind of bombarded you with a lot of information. It's probably now, I don't know if you have answered any of your questions. You made you even more confused. But anyways, reach out, sign up for the mentorship program. And if you have any more questions, hashtag SAMA Juniors, SAMAJRS. The link to this YouTube video is going to be recorded, so you can always refer back to this video. At any point, we're going to post this link after we're done with the session.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
You.